And that's the beauty of this show, is that we're always finding new people, and of course everybody who keeps returning. We appreciate all of you. We appreciate everybody out there who continues to tune in week after week too. So I hope everybody is well.
And I'm going to just toss the baton to Kellen Ann, who will introduce our new friend that I'm going to put in the middle real quick, Mr. Alan.
Hi, this is my friend Alan. Can I still admit that you're my friend?
He's not just your friend. You shared him with me and everybody else.
I did share him with Lynn, and now you guys are going to love him.
Let's see how the show goes before you're still friends.
Yeah, what's the end of the show? Then you'll decide.
Okay. Yeah, he may not. Yeah, this may be our last day together. Alan, I met him during COVID through a mastermind group, and he is just badass. And he gets so embarrassed when I introduce him but he doesn't understand. He's and correct me if I'm wrong, a 5th degree black belt. You were ex-Army sniper. You've written like 1 million books. You're on radio stations all the time being interviewed. Sorry, Scott. Being interviewed for like Survive a Shooting is one of your books, and you go on radio stations and when there's shootings and talk to people and advise how to be prepared. And you also give trainings on surviving shootings and another product that you work with. And you were an extra on Yellowstone. And then I can't remember the name of the movie you just finished yesterday. There.
Mr. Pettigrew.
Yes. So is that enough? That's a lot. He's
yeah, and I've interviewed him too. And so yeah, he's just and he lives in Montana, so we're in the same time zone.
Yeah. That's right.
He's just a couple towns away from me.
Yeah.
So
there's only 2 towns in Montana, for God's sake.
Yeah, and we have the lights on, so you guys can stay away, and it's all good. No, just kidding. Enough of that. I mean, he's a very modest, humble guy. I will say that.
Yeah.
So, and he's going to say, "Okay, stop," and he's going to be a great addition to our group here because he'll just jump right in. And enough of that. But Alan, if you haven't watched our show much, we razz Scott because he hasn't published his book yet, but look at the artists. You see all the artists, all the work.
Okay, the over under one that was under 3 minutes.
Yeah,
we it on Scott, so that was good.
I know. This is just
okay.
I just wait all day so I can hear this shit. That's what I
do. But he's very accomplished in many other ways, including the fact that I'm just going to take a quick minute to say that he does do other podcasts, and he's starting his 2nd season with Mary Kay, and I get to be a guest over there this Thursday. So come on over and chat with us over there. So anyhow, so we did not pick a topic yet. So how about if we pick a topic or be
dealer's choice?
Dealer's choice.
Dealer's choice.
So, or maybe you know what, Alan, you do a podcast now too, and you do one every day, right?
Correct. I do coffee with Alan every morning.
What was your topic this morning?
My topic this morning was making sure you ask yourself, am I willing to die for this before you ever engage in a physical confrontation? Because too many people get into altercations and fights, and people get seriously hurt and even killed over stupid stuff. Mm-hmm. So that was my topic this morning.
I love it. I love it.
Very light. Very light.
Very light.
Light, airy. A little bit good.
Wait, my podcast and my newsletter go between self-defense and safety tips, as well as enjoying life and being successful and extraordinary. So, I mean, I touch on all of those topics. Today was sort of a self-defense day.
I like your travel tips.
Well, I think it's important. I mean, think about the next time you give somebody the finger on the freeway, is it worth dying for, that moment of, or pulled over in a traffic stop, I mean, consider what could escalate. I think that's worthwhile knowing. So thank you for that.
Yeah, we actually had here in Dallas last week, had a guy flip somebody off on the freeway. The guy turned around and killed the guy's wife sitting next to him.
Wow.
I mean, true last week. So
it happens. I mean, Russell Crowe did that movie a couple years ago, you know, the little road rage incident that just went crazy, and those kind of things happen. I mean, wow, you just had one right where you're at. So
Right.
yeah.
You know, there's another piece of that too, which I love this topic actually, because, you know, it's almost like how important is it really? And, but there's also what kind of person do I want to be? You know, when I came out of the other end of my addictions and everything, I was sober for about 2 years, and I was still pretty fresh and young, and you know, full of piss and vinegar. And I was on my motorcycle one day, and somebody cut me off, almost took me off the road. But it wasn't like they were trying to drive me off the road. They turned, they didn't see me, they kind of cut me off. A mistake we all make. But I lost my temper because I come from a place of, you know, just add alcohol for an instant asshole. That's what I was. And so I was still a very angry person. And so I decided to chase this person. I'm on my motorcycle, they're in a Cadillac, and I'm chasing them through the streets. And I'm about that far from the bumper. I'm inches from the bumper. Never once thinking all they got to do is tap the brakes and I'm screwed. But I chase this person, and they finally come to a light where they have to stop. And I pull my bike around, and I got California straight pipes, which are very loud. And I'm revving the bike, and I get right up next to the door, and I look over, and there's this woman, had to be 80, 82 years old. And she's got a death grip on the steering wheel. And she is white and scared. And I look over, and that was in that one moment. It was one of those epiphanies we have in life. And I thought, is this the person I want to be? Is this the person I want to be? And I honked my horn. Now, the beautiful thing about a motorcycle, if anybody out there is ever a motorcycle rider, what you understand is no matter how cool your bike is, your horn is always a wussy sound.
True.
So I've got the bike's going, boom, 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 and then I kick the horn, and it goes, meep, meep. So I hit the horn, and she just looks over, and I took my helmet off. I smiled at her, and I said, I'm sorry. It's okay. And she smiled. And you know what? That woman actually was in the town of Jersey, and that's when I was doing TV and radio. And I got to know her very well after that, up until she died. But that was the moment where I decided, you know what? Throwing down with people doesn't make you a man. If somebody calls you a name, so it's a name. Get over it. Whatever happened to sticks and stones, right? It's about who you want to be. And there's very few things in my life where I think physical confrontation is the answer to it. The list is very, very short, and sure Alan would agree with your background in self-defense and stuff. It's about defense. It's not about offense. And it was a really good change for me. And that was one of those moments, those life lessons where I thought being a man meant kicking somebody's ass. But I found out being a man is about making somebody smile and lifting somebody up. And so that was a good moment for me. So that's how I got from what your topic was. So let's open it up.
And that's what I love about this show. It's as we all see it. And that's the thing is, I think in life, that's where we're always at, is we're, as we all different see it in different, you know, you're looking at a glass, and depending on what angle you're at, you're reading different parts of the glass, and we all have pieces of that glass in order, or a jigsaw puzzle or fabric, you know, to make it all. And if we could all stop for a moment and realize that we don't have all the facts, we don't have all the pieces to really see the big thing. And I've been in many mock juries to know that, because when they come in, you're like, oh, I know how this goes, and then you realize, no, you don't know how this goes because you don't have all the facts. And so,
we all know what a half a glass of water means. It means there's got to be a horse somewhere.
Oh, we're not going to go there
Barry.
again.
I would like to add, though, that
Yes.
Scott, that's a testimony to the kind of person you are, who you became, who you were, to in that moment see the person for what's going on, and then acknowledge that, you know, here's this little old lady who may be terrified, and I'm not gonna, I mean, somebody else may have still pursued, you know, another avenue. So, you know, kudos to you for having that presence and that awareness, and then sharing it here now. I mean, that's really a lesson we can all learn and benefit from.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Rex.
Yeah,
I love
no, I mean, that's exceptional. I think we're in a time where, man, if we don't kick kindness into hyperdrive, we've got a real challenge on our hands. You know, you just see what's happening, and not a political statement, but also Nike's going to shut down their you know, their lead store and whatever because of too much shoplifting, too much this. What that really is disrespect. You know, I mean, we can call it whatever we want to call it, but I mean, it's people not respecting each other and doing whatever, and a whole bunch of kindness and a whole bunch of, you know, the proper examples would make a big difference. And again, you're only in control of you. It's the only thing that you can do. And that's the biggest part of it. Right. But if we create enough people, you know, I've said it on this show before, 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, 32 and a half times covers everybody on the world. Nobody wants to start with the first 2. You know, we've got to be that example to other people of doing different things. And we were talking about it in a event over the weekend of, you know, just say hell yes to doing good things for people and being nice to people and lifting people up. I mean, what's the alternative? It's not taking you on a good path. It's not taking anybody on a good path. So I too commend you, Scott, on doing that. And I think you have those epiphany moments but even when you have them, the question is, have you observed it enough? And have you taken it to heart to put it into play from that point forward? You know, there's a demarcation point in everything. That's, we did a training last week and we talked about the word decision coming from the Latin decidere, to cut off. You've got to cut off other choices, and it comes down to choices. So you made a great choice, and it's amazing how that choice then fostered other great choices. You know, every string of great choices has to start with the first one. So well done.
I just chuckle because I think in life we all have those little triggers and stuff. And when you said 2 by 2 by 2 or whatever, there's some people in network marketing 2 by 2, they messed up the pyramid. So people hear that and then they don't like that and then they go somewhere else. So see, you can't use that reference point from one thing to another. Go ahead.
Well, say my reference point at the 2 by 2 is the arc, so it's a different story entirely. So.
Yeah, but I'm making a joke. I'm making a point that
So was
sometimes you get. Yeah, I know.
Well,
and that's a good one. That's a good one. But I'm just saying that there's always diversions to what is the point in what's going on, and there's always that whole thing of what people see, and that's what I love about here is that we can all take one concept and see it one way and make a situation better than, you know, and make it better than what it was.
Well, last Tuesday, the reason I wasn't here is I was at an event called Bullets and Bourbon, and literally
combination.
Well, interesting. They actually suggest don't try the bourbon until after you shoot. But
Celebrate.
Alan, what do you think about that?
I thought that was probably a good point. But what was interesting is literally there were probably 150 people there, but there were probably more either licensed assassins or former licensed assassins, Marine Ranger, Marine snipers, Rangers, SEALs, people who have done some stuff that I'm sure they'd love to forget, quite frankly, but in the defense of our nation, and in a room full of veterans who have given so much to protect us, and then to be there and have people lift them up. And the place is actually called High Ground. And what they do is they actually, when a former military comes out and wants to start a business, that's their high ground. They give them an office and they give them the opportunity and entrepreneurial training. And man, it was just so cool to be around that environment of people wanting to support those who have supported us, even though we didn't know what they were doing. But you think about, I mean, I talked to a couple guys that I would not want to meet without other people around me. I'm just telling you.
Well, God bless them.
But that have been called upon to do some really bad stuff for good reasons, quote unquote, right? but then to have them come back and want to return into society and come back into society and give back and go even further. It was a phenomenal event, and just I'm so amazed at how tight those guys are, because they've lived through so much together and they know that they can depend on each other. Service to service. Yeah. Was there kidding around? Nobody talked about the fact they hadn't written books. I'm just telling you, it didn't come down to
Well, nobody was getting mad.
Boy,
at
that was a
you
long
for
way
not
to go
writing
for that,
books.
Scott.
That was not me. I did not.
But the point is,
I appreciate the effort. I got it.
the point is that they all came together from different services, from different backgrounds to pull together, because when it was time to pull together, that's what they did. And that's where I think what we can all do. You know, we haven't had to go through all of that, but whatever we've gone through, we can use those experiences to pull together to be of service to others and lift everybody up. We've got to.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So, my favorite movie is Bambi Meets Godzilla.
I know that.
Okay.
That must have been
Haven't seen
direct to video. I don't
Well,
remember that one.
But
On YouTube, you look at that.
you had a beautiful experience. I was training in Mexico with an ex-Navy SEAL who'd been invited to leave the SEALs, and for being too much of a SEAL, and we were demonstrating some martial arts stuff, and so I said, "Do you want to go first, or do you want to go first?" And he said, "Well, why don't you go first?" So he puts his hands out, and I'm going to punch his hands, and kick his hands, do whatever. And I went, "Well, I don't want to hurt you." He said, "Well, you can't hurt me." I said, "Oh, okay." He said, "Well, but if you do, I'll kill you, and I won't mean to."
That seems reasonable, actually.
I was like, "Huh?" But I was like, "Wow, I don't know if he's serious or not serious at that moment." And
I can only imagine you threw the softest punch you've ever thrown in your life.
I did not go full out, I will tell you that.
Oh my God.
But we developed an interesting relationship. And I actually, I was walking with a guy on my right side was a phenomenal martial artist with belt after belt after belt, at Prestige. And then I had the Navy SEAL on my left, and we're walking down the street, and I'm like, okay, who's going to mess with me now?
Like, come on, grab me.
And no one did. I mean, the energy was such that people just kind of, the streets parted, and we just went down. Now, I bring this up only because it was a beautiful share, Scott, but a friend of mine recently posted this thing that I don't get offended very much, but he said, "Can we make masculinity popular again?" As an anti-woke kind of thing, that, like men need to be men again, and they need to be, and I love this guy, and he's got a voice out in the world, and I love him. He's a friend and everything. And my first inclination was to text back or, make a comment or whatever, and I just let it go. But, the idea, and this is based on what kind of both Scotts were talking about, the idea that a man doesn't have to be violent. He doesn't have to be, hurtful or any of those things. He can be kind and compassionate and genuine. He can have a feminine side and still be completely masculine. It's not the absence of something, it's the blend of things. And this idea that, we have to somehow get back to rugged manlyhood in order to assert ourselves, because the world is going, airy fairy with, weirdness. And it's not. It's just that what's happening, in my estimation, is that it's starting to find a balance. And when anything is out of balance, it goes out of balance before it gets balanced. In other words, there's always the pendulum going from one side to the other side before it kind of gets back to the middle. And so what's happening is a natural progression of all of the different kinds of energies going on that are trying to come to a place where we live higher, we live better, we live with more compassion and with more peace and with more understanding. And while that's going on, there's going to be those factions that fight it violently. And I don't mean with violence, but I'm saying they will vehemently oppose it. And then there's those other that vehemently embrace it. And they will, it's like Einstein said, great spirits must always contend with mediocre minds. And so in the same way, and I don't mean to slight anybody in that, but I'm just saying that while transformation is occurring, not everybody's on the same page, but we have the opportunity to get on the same page, especially if the light bearers bear the light and are the examples of walking the talk and doing what they claim to be doing instead of saying something and then being a counterexample to that.
Speaking of balance, though, this day was not balanced out. Barry?
Yes.
Yeah, you were at a global women's club.
Mm-hmm.
And how many men were there?
2.
2. And
Yeah.
how many women were there?
About 40.
Yeah, there you go.
What can I say? I've privileged to be in certain places, but I want to actually
Yeah,
speak something.
and look at the expression on his face. He's like, okay.
He's like, women, there's 40 women here.
I was talking, so I didn't actually have a chance to pause for the camera. So
Handsome picture of you.
Thank you. I
Go
appreciate that. But I want to speak to what Rex said in a little bit first, because there's so much that's been covered so far today. I have a personal pet peeve with the term masculinity being thrown around when it's not the accurate term. My belief is what people are attached to, many men are attached to, isn't masculinity, it's machismo. Yeah. And the challenge is
machismo. Say it like the Spanish Latino. Machismo.
You did for me, thank you. And the challenge is a lot of the people who are the quote unwoke, and I want to get to the woke, that's another conversation entirely. But a lot of people want to revert back to a type where men were men, meaning they were bossy, they were in charge, they were running the show and screw anybody else. The masculinity that I believe in personally, and this is what I've been doing for the last 15, 16 years, is really a new evolution, so to speak, of being truly authentic man. Like you were saying, Rex, having compassion and care, as well as direction, clarity, strength, protection, all those energies that I think most men would like to have. And I think some men are afraid to open up to that vulnerability, to be soft enough and open enough to be seen, to be heard, and to be felt. Yeah. So part of the shift for me is that we haven't grown that way. A lot of men haven't learned how to open up their hearts. I mean, I worked with women for the last 17 years, because frankly, they're willing to work. Most men haven't been. So my work in this last couple of years opening up to working more with men now, because I realize more men are looking for that support where they can be vulnerable, honest, open, and caring while still not giving up their true, authentic masculinity at the same time. But one thing I'll speak back to earlier about the driving thing. I've been on the spiritual path for almost 40 years. And one of the things I always joked about, and it's been sarcastic, this kind of what's going on, is people at my spiritual center, oftentimes when they're running late to come to meditation, come driving up, double parking, trying to get into meditation. And the logic of that is just cracks me up, because what people do, and this is going to speak to a bigger picture in a moment, is people think that if they get to the right place, they can be spiritual. Meanwhile, they left a stream of debris behind them where they're basically and everything else to get, people do that. And living in LA, we've had road rage a lot in the last, decades. But the thing is, people are doing the work of being spiritual, even religious. It's like, do you live that only at the church on Sunday? Or do you live that as a way of being? Because truly, if we are a religious nation or a Christian nation, what you want to call that, I'm not Christian, I'm Jewish, so I don't fit in that paradigm, plus I'm English to make it harder. But the recognition is that if we're doing the work of being spiritual, conscious, caring, loving, religious, whatever it is, shouldn't that dictate that we treat our neighbors like we treat ourselves, that we're kind and compassionate, that we forgive other people, that we serve the greater good? I mean, there's rhetorical questions, I know.
I'm sorry, I got to put it in my schedule somewhere.
But that's the thing. Can we make time to do this during the week, So, Scott, please.
I've often been shocked by people who will step past homeless people, not make eye contact with homeless people on their way to church, so they can sit there and talk about their spiritual being and how much they love everyone, but
there's
walk past people who need you,
or to go volunteer at the pantry.
Right. I was going to say, there's actually a story. I think it's a true story about this guy who was the pastor who dressed up as a homeless person. So basically, he was the new pastor coming into that church. But he dressed up as a homeless person and watched how people treated him as he went into the church. And when they introduced the new pastor, he walked up to the front in homeless clothing and basically just scared them straight, basically. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, on top of that, there's a good question in this, and I understand the logistics behind it and everything else, but why would a church ever lock their doors?
Mm-hmm.
Scott, I think you were trying to say something earlier, right?
Well, I was just, I agree that it's not a it's not a 1 day a week, whatever your spiritual practice is, it's not a 1 day a week process. It's an everyday opportunity to share. I was very blessed to be invited to an event a week ago, and Nick Vujicic was speaking, the Australian with no arms, no legs, just an absolutely amazing testimony and everything about him. And I got to be sitting back in the green room while he was on stage. And I was sitting next to this woman. I had no clue who she was. And we were kind of kibitzing about different things that he was saying. And we were trying to do it quietly, and we weren't doing it. But what it brought out is I said something about That Sucks, What Now, the latest book. And she said, what's it about? And for the first time ever, I wrote God's plan and timing plus a plus sign, all things work together for my good equals total peace. And it was just I didn't even realize that I did it until I did it. And it was like, wow, that's the message right there. When you put it together, there's an equation of doing certain things that you can achieve total peace. And it's funny, and I've shared it on this show multiple times before too, about high intention, low attachment. Isn't it interesting how we get tested with what we teach all the time? And I had gotten fairly attached to a couple things, and all of a sudden I realized, man, let it go. And as soon as that happened, all of a sudden I got, there was a new coaching client, and there was a new this and a new that. And what I thought was the direction and what I had become attached to may or may not be the answer. And all of a sudden you realize it. And what was funny is I was talking to a friend of mine, and I was just kind of sharing the situation. He goes, well, what are you doing Thursday and Friday? And I said, just making calls, doing what I do. He says, no, you're not. And I said, okay, what am I doing? He says, you're teaching an event with me. And we did 2 1.5 hour segments that were 3 hours each day. So we ended up doing 6 hours, and it was just awesome. Zero planning, let it fly. And it was just like, okay, we got to do more of that. And so you start to realize what the real call is. And that's why I honor Rex for allowing me to be on a summit with him, because it allowed me. That's what I'm supposed to be doing more of. But you work so hard to be doing what you think you're supposed to be doing that you don't necessarily always get around to what you're supposed to be doing. So it's fascinating that what's so cool about this show is everybody has got a kind of a theme to what they do, and yet they move off of it to realize and expand even further. And I think that's the other side of it. We're here to be kind to each other, but we're also here to continually expand ourselves and grow as we move through this life. So
I didn't mean to jump over you, hipster, but I was moving Alan over because we had him really quiet for a little bit. So
well, we still got to hear from Kellyanne and Alan.
Yes,
now he's trying to figure out how he got into this ADD group therapy session.
But there is something
all over the place.
There is some, I mean, I like, especially when you're talking about racing to get to the church or to the practice, the spiritual practice, because I think in so many areas of people's lives, we get fixated on a destination and we completely forget about the journey getting there.
Yeah.
People get fixated on success and they think, oh, I'm going to have it when I'm here, or things are going to be better when I'm here. It's going to be this when I'm there. And they forget about living right now and enjoying everything that we have to go through to get to those different pinnacles. I mean, you can't just go to a place, like you said, and be spiritual. I mean, if you're going to be spiritual, it should be your life. We can't just think we're good. Okay, when I'm successful, when I get to this point, this many dollars, then I'll be happy and successful. We need to be successful and happy right now as we're getting there. I mean, we don't just enjoy Disney when we get there. Enjoy the plane rides to Disney. Enjoy the Uber to your hotel. And enjoy the whole vacation, not just parts of it. And I think we get too fixated on that sometimes, of the destination rather than the entire journey.
Amen.
I like that.
And I wanted to add something to that because it reminds me that, and Alan will know this, we're pretty close to the border. Back in 2001, before 9/11, I had LASIK eye surgery. And when I went up there, I didn't have 20/20 vision right away. But I was legal enough to drive. And I was like, what do you mean? I don't think I have perfect vision yet, because I had swelling. So I came home and I was supposedly able to drive, but I was still like, they told me you're legal, but you don't have vision yet. And by a week later, I go to the eye doctor and he's like, you got 20/10. And I'm like, but it's funny. Why did I have to wait to go to the doctor a week later? And here I had 20/10 to know that I could see really well, right? Like, why is somebody going to tell you when, you should feel and see it yourself, right? It's just a point of saying that you should, not worry, expect to go through the process and, in time, and have that faith and trust and believe, because, and then next thing you're like, oh, wait, I can see, like, it's one of those things. It goes to show you, it's that placebo effect, and Rex talks about that all the time, and that muscle memory and whatever, you're going to believe and see what you believe and see, to be true. And that was just an example of that. Mary Kay says everything we need is inside of us and goes everywhere with us. And that's absolutely true. Thanks, Mary Kay, for being here.
Kellen Ann, what are you thinking about up there in your corner?
She's just smiling.
I know, she's beautiful.
I can go so many places with all of this.
I'm sure you can.
Yeah, she's so good at pointing everywhere too. So
she's just sitting there. She's just sitting there smiling. She probably doesn't even have the sound on. Just kind of like this.
She does love Stevie Wonder a lot. So
No, I love you guys, but I'm so excited, my friend.
I know, Ellen. And Kellen Ann is a connector. Kellen Ann is a connector, and I'm grateful that she connected to me to Alan a long time ago. So thank you for that.
All right, let's all hold up our books at once. Come on, let's just.
No, this was Alan's, not mine.
She actually, that was one of mine. That's my one novel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a good one. I like it.
All right, I'm going to send everybody paints, and everybody's got to paint a picture.
Okay.
Everybody's got to paint a Maryland like that. All right.
Now I'm gonna have the pugs.
Oh,
We can
Okay,
finger
Kellen Ann.
Okay, so the road rage thing. So I was driving. Max and I were being interviewed on a local TV station in Houston, and it's a long story. We ended up driving there, and I don't know the name of the road. I'm going 80 miles an hour. I'm a safe distance from the car in front of me. There's a big truck to the side of me. The person behind me could not get past me, and I could not get over. There's a semi. So finally, the semi slows down a little bit, and then he shoots over and throws his soda out the window at my car.
Wow.
Where does that come from? I mean, he had to be 20. And I didn't flip him off. I didn't brake check him. And I was ready to follow him and crash into the back of his car because I was so mad. I'm like, you just threw a Diet Coke or whatever it was at my car. And I'm like, what? So then I stopped and I'm like, wait a minute. Maybe 10 years ago, I would have tapped him, taken him off the road. But I've come a long way, baby. No, because the part of me was saying, okay, is he on the way to the hospital to see a dying relative? Is he, what? I don't know what's going on in that poor guy's head. So I just, I backed off, and then he actually cut me off and he ran me off the road. But I just want to know, where does that come from? Because, I mean, is it adult? Is it mom and dad not teaching you good things? Is it
foundationally? I think it's the respect, honor, dignity thing.
Yes.
I think it's just a pure respect thing that we don't all have to agree with each other. There's never been a time in history where everybody's agreed with each other, but we should at least respect each other. We should
Gen
respect,
Z.
yeah. That's well, he finally got the epiphany. Sugary drinks were not good for him.
Maybe that's it.
But
Because I don't need this sugar.
That's right.
McKellen's left side of the car does.
That's right. But I mean, I think if we would just, again, it comes down to respecting each other and listening. I think everything is moving so fast these days.
Maybe there was a bee in it.
Yeah.
That's what it was. It's like, ah! Yeah, sorry.
Okay, but I have a good road rage.
Go, Kellen.
Too. So this happened a long time. This is when I lived in California. I was driving. You may think this is all my fault, but because it happens to me so much. But another person honking their horn, flipping me off, cut me off. It's not like it was a freeway. It was just downtown. So I followed
That
them.
was you?
No.
Sorry.
Hang on. You were doing a downtown?
Hey, I followed this person because I was a little concerned. This was at the beginning of me turning nice.
It was Roxanne.
But this is the non-tap him, put him off the road me. This was the nice me, the compassionate me. And I followed them, and then it was a lady. She pulls over into the parking lot, and I know this is stupid, but I pulled up to her and I rolled my window down. I said, "Are you okay?" And she had just gotten the worst news on the phone, and so I got out of my car and I sat and I talked with her for about 10 minutes, and she's like, "Oh my God." And she ended up apologizing to me. But this is a perfect example of not knowing what's going through their head when something erratic happens. And this lady, like she just learned somebody had died or something like that. I'm like, who tells you somebody died on the phone while you're driving? That you need to talk to your relative and have them not do that, because you wait till somebody gets home and safe or to the destination. But yeah, I mean, I could have gotten pissed off, flipped her off, and then just took off. But something inside me said, you need to pull over. You need to follow this person, pull over, and make sure that they're okay. So that's my other road rage story.
Wow. Hey,
did anybody notice Kellen's first story? She's like, a local radio station in Houston, and I drove there from Atlanta.
Yeah.
No, it was a local TV station, a local Houston TV station.
Yeah.
You
know what?
It's not local to her. Yeah.
My friend.
Yeah.
Don't cross me.
I'd like to add something that I hope adds to all of these different examples and stories. A while ago, I was brought in for the leadership of the men's movement, and they have a brand, and I won't say what it is, but I was brought in because they were
underwear.
Because they were feeling that they weren't communicating with the men, they weren't getting the idea, and there was a lot of trouble with the management. So I showed up on time, I'm hired to be there, and I show up on time, and then I said, "Excuse me, I'll be back," and I leave. That way they know I'm on time, but now I leave, and I let them configure in their management circle the way they did without me being there, because otherwise I'm a new person in there, and they'll configure differently. So then when they're all configured, I come in and I pull in a chair, and I just do whatever you do. And so I listened for a while, and then they're all like, "Okay, what do you notice, Rex?" And I said, "Well, here's what I notice." I said, "You are the leaders of this powerful international movement. And your concern is that your movement is got some differences of what's going on, and there's some problems, and you've asked me to come here and troubleshoot." And they go, yeah. I said, "Can I speak directly and honestly with you?" And they said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, what I noticed since I've been here is you got together, you said hi, and then you all started to complain about what was going on and how it was wrong and the things that weren't working out and who was doing what and what was not going right and everything else." I said, "This is a morning meeting. You're starting off with a list of woes and a list of complaints and a list of wrongs and a list of grievances. How about starting off being grateful and helpful and gratitude and loving and kind and focusing on those things?" And they all went, "Oh my God. That's what we have always intended to do." And I go, "Well, then why don't you just start doing it?" And the point is that we sometimes forget that we're human and our habits can overtake us, and we get into a continued way of doing things, and then we think that that's the reality when we are trying to get a different result and we don't know what's going on, and the ability to have feedback. So I was called in, and I just observe what's going on and then tell them, "Hey, you know what? If you're going to start off with problems, you're going to end up with problems. You're not going to solve them. But if you start off with feeling good about each other and edifying and uplifting people, and then going, now from this state, from feeling good, like anchor in this positivity. Now look at what you can do. I got the most wonderful letter and all this kind of stuff, for what I had done. And what I had done was worth lots to them. I mean, I can't tell you how much it was worth to them. But the point is something so very simple that most people miss. And that is, your attitude determines everything. What you see is what you get. And if the first thing you see is an issue or a problem, maybe you need to look again and find something good and focus on that, because from a solution, from a higher state of being, you can solve your problems far more readily than if you come from a lower state of being trying to accomplish your problems. And realize you're all in it together. We're all in it together. And as people, we're all in it together. And let's just try and be a little bit nicer and gentler and kinder to each and every one of the people who surround us, whether it's on the freeway, or at the coffee shop, or in your own home or family, or where you're working, and understand that, there is an approach that you can take that may make an incredible difference for yourself and for them. And
Rex reminded me, and Rex is everywhere, is doing all this fun stuff. But it's just like when you're doing a puzzle, and I don't know if any of you have done puzzles, but when you do a puzzle and you're watching it and do it so much, you can't get a piece in there. You just can't. You're working it so hard, or you're studying and you just looking at the material. You got to literally walk away. You got to walk away. You come back and all of a sudden the pieces are falling back into place. You look at the stuff too much, and Rex is always teaching you to just, look at it with a new perspective or new attitude or whatever, and your experience will be different. And also, I mean, his book, when you do buy his book, I know I'm plugging it in, but he does give you this course, and it's true. If you're childlike and if you're, remember that you don't know everything, then you can learn things. We close ourselves off. So thanks for shaking up the room and reminding us that we don't know everything. And if we look at things different, we'll get a different look on things. So that's why I like as we all see it.
But no, beautiful. I just want to add to what you said. I used to teach this in my workshops. I would put a bunch of people together on the floor, throw a puzzle on the floor, and go ahead and put it together. And you watch how, because all the patterns, everything comes out when people are trying to work together as a team or do things independently. One person likes it, the other person doesn't, that kind of stuff. But if you're ever doing a puzzle with other people or by yourself, or it's on the table, walk away from it, or stand on a chair and look at it. Get a perspective that's different from what you normally are looking at. You're going, you're too close to it.
Yeah. And
you need to get a broad perspective. Then you need to have that close-up perspective. You need to have a broad perspective. You need to have a close-up perspective, and it helps you to same with any problem in your life. Is that most people have problems because they're looking at it from a fixed point of view.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's, and I think what's great is like I'm studying for something now, and I realize that I like to take the quizzes. And then from the quizzes, I go, well, why would they ask me that question? Let me go find out why they would ask that question. And I'm finding a different way to study than I normally would. So again, it's doing things more. If you're right-handed, do things more with the left-handed, and vice versa, because we're so muscle memory. I mean, half of you that drive don't even remember how you got from point A to B anymore. You don't. And I will tell you this really quick. I went to my grandson's football game last night, and for like 6 or 7 minutes didn't know where my grandson was. And he has long hair. He has long curly hair, 3 years old, didn't know where he was. Well, I'm describing him and trying to find him.
Oh, geez.
I put his hair up in a ponytail, but I was telling everybody, he's got long blonde hair. He looks like a girl. I don't know where he's at. I had to look at my camera and realize I put his hair in a ponytail. I didn't even remember. I mean, that's how panicky I was. And I did something different. But long story short, it goes again, that you've just got to realize that you change things up and you can freak out, and you got to see things from a different light. So it's just the point of, just thought I'd mention that. But we found them and
watch your kids.
Glad
we found it real quick. So anyways, grandson did the touchdown, the only touchdown, and they won. So I was happy. So anyways. So we're getting already. We're
getting to that point where it's getting close to wrap up. Something's been going through my head just while everybody was talking, and thinking about what I was sharing about the story with the old lady and the motorcycle and are you who you want to be? I mean, the violence and the anger and all that. I was that person because it served me at that time to be that person. I chose that path. Nothing made me a violent, angry person. I chose that path. And when I started making a new path in my life, I chose a different path. We are who we choose to be. And there's a lot of times we think about where did this come from? Why do people do this and stuff? It's what we choose. Nobody makes you angry. Nobody makes you choose anger as your response. You choose those things. And I chose anger most of my life. And I chose to be disrespectful most of my life. Nobody's ever had to earn my respect. I'm not God. You don't have to earn my respect. I show respect because that's the person I want to be. Respect is something that is given. You don't have to earn that from you. You earn trust, but respect is different. You be a respectful person. That's who you want to be. I work hard every day to be a better person than I was yesterday, and certainly a better person than I was 10 years ago and 20 years ago when I was doing my worst. Violence has no place for me in my life because it doesn't serve me anymore in my life. What serves me in my life is to help other people, to do the best I can, to be kind, to share what I can about my own experiences so that maybe somebody else doesn't have to go through it. And to look in a mirror every day, and not have to be horrified by the person who I'm looking at. And I haven't felt that way in a long time. And I hope to God I never feel that way again. But I just want to say it is our choice. Somebody cutting you off and the way we react, the reaction is our choice. People are going to cut you off your whole life. People bump into you your whole life. Your 2-year-old nephew bumps into you. You don't turn around and knock him on his ass. Well, maybe some of you do, and we won't bring that up now because, the authorities could be listening. But you don't do it. Why? Because you choose not to. But if a stranger walks out of a bar and stumbles into you, we might want to knock them down in the street because they disrespected us. It's so funny. Everybody thinks that this is automatic. I'm a bitch. That's just the way I am. I'm miserable in the morning. That's just the way I am. No, it's the way you choose to be. You guys have choices. Everybody out there, you all have choices. And if you're living in an angry, violent situation, it's because that's what you choose to live in. And don't look around for anybody else to blame. Look in the mirror and decide, what do I want to be, and start moving towards it. Find somebody who can guide you, certainly. I talked before about my friend Denny, and I'm just going to end with this for me. I want to hear what everybody else says. My friend Denny, who was my sponsor, who got me sober the first time, and he's helped thousands of people. He died a few months ago, and I shared with you that he passed away. And my business partner Karen went back up to my hometown of Syracuse this past weekend, and one of the people who was helped by Denny gave me this, and it is actually a medallion, and it's got his ashes in them.
Aww.
And he made enough, and he's handing out a few hundred of these to all the people that Denny helped, and so we can keep them with him. And I think about the legacy I want to leave behind. I want to leave behind the legacy of Scott helped me. Not that Scott was tougher than me. Not that Scott was smarter than me. Not that Scott was richer than me. Scott helped me when I needed him. And that's the legacy I want to leave behind. We all have that choice to be that person. So next time somebody wants to beat you up, next time somebody calls you a bitch, a 5-letter word, it could change your whole life. Because I watch kids get in fights and end up in jail because somebody called me a bitch, and I won't be disrespected. You just proved that 5-letter word could turn you into a bitch. Right. Don't do that anymore. Just be you, and be the best you could possibly be. I love all of you guys, and I appreciate it. Alan, I hope nobody scared you today.
We'll start with Alan.
And Scott, I really appreciate what you're saying, because so many times people have said, well, that's just me. I'm that, and I'm like, is that the way you want to be? I mean, because it's not getting you anywhere. And so so many people, one of the things I do is I teach communication classes as well. I mean, I got a law degree and used to mediate. And so, I mean, I got that background. And I tell people, you're always communicating, but you're not always effectively communicating to get your desired results. And people are, that's just the way I am. It's like, well, maybe you want to change the way you are and be more effective and get more positive things done with your life.
Absolutely. So let's go once around the room, and everybody take a few moments and share what you're thinking.
Well, yeah, can I just be, Alan, Elaine, the thing about it is if somebody walked into a hospital with a nail in their forehead and said, I have a nail in my forehead, I need help. And they, well, that's just the way you are.
Well, there are
You're saying
piercings
that's a
all
little
over the
too,
place anymore.
A little too factual.
No, I'm saying that defense that you offer. I mean, you're so right, Alan. It is like. Anyway, I didn't mean to.
Go ahead. You're
No,
a
I
little
was trying to
square
make
now.
a point about Alan. Well, okay, so I would close with what Scott was saying about respect and people wanting respect. It seems to be an issue with a lot of people. About, hey, you're dissing me, you don't give me respect, you've done something harm. Well, maybe that's feedback for all of us to just be more respectful more of the time to more people, so that more people got the respect that they deserve and they want and they desire and they need, so that they don't walk around going, whoa, you're disrespecting me. I mean, didn't it make sense if somebody going, you're doing this to me, you're not showing me respect, that if you really wanted to, you could say, I'm sorry, you are a person worthy of respect, and my bad. Instead of escalating it, de-escalate something, but give first. Go, givers get. So go out, give, make the world a different place. Share the love, the compassion, the respect, the kindness, the gentleness. As Elaine said, focus on the journey, not just the destination.
Absolutely.
And live life. Help other people live life well too.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rex. Barry.
I want to say something in response to what you were saying, Scott, and kind of what Alan was saying too, about that's just me. I was in a seminar years ago, and I remember they had this banner across the stage that said, which I love using this quote, which is, "Who are you pretending not to be?"
Yeah.
Because that question provokes some self-investigation, and ideally, it makes you realize that what you've been doing isn't who you really are. Because most of us, we pretend to be something we're not in the world. That's kind of what we're doing. That's the road rage, that's the stuff you do in buildings and you go in public. You do it in relationships even, which is my area of expertise. If you drop the act and you remember who you really are, first of all, it's a lot easier to be that way when we remember. But secondly, we don't have as much angst and upset with other people. Because most of the time we're trying to present an act that we need to convince other people who we are, which is a lot of work and stressful and frankly isn't very friendly. But if you recognize that who you're pretending not to be and recognize that who you really are is different from that, then it becomes much easier. Joke around about relationship stuff about how people, when they rely on relationships, make stuff up. That's a lot of work to keep remembering who you told what to. Telling the truth is so much easier. Same idea applies here. When you're being true to yourself, who you really are, life gets a whole lot easier. So my tip for the week.
I like that.
Barry, you're awesome.
That's awesome, Barry. I just think that a little bit off of what Rex was saying too. I think it's not that hard. I think it's this whole the velocity of communication and the quantity of communication, and all of a sudden it's the soggy potato chip theory. Let's go back to a study from like a gazillion years ago. If you don't have a good quality potato chip, a kid will do whatever he needs to do to get a soggy potato chip because he wants a frickin' potato chip, right? And so people all of a sudden do something stupid, and somebody rewards them for doing something stupid. And so it's like, well, I was a badass because I called him out because he dissed me.
Mm-hmm.
No, you're not a badass. You're just an idiot.
Call it what it is, a soggy potato.
Well, but that's exactly it. It's the crying out for attention, and it's the crying out for different stuff. And again, it's interesting because I'm a recovering type A personality. I get it. I went through it because we saw certain things when we were younger, but it went past type A to type stupid, to just doing really dumbass stuff for no particular reason. That and we see it. It's so Iowa played Iowa State on Saturday. Go Hawks! We won. We did good. But when Hayden Fry came into Iowa, he instituted the swarm, which meant that all players, the captains all held hands, and the entire team came on at a half a mile an hour together. It looked like a swarm of bumblebees. It's called the swarm. And my wife called it out to me when they won the other day. The first thing they did is they came together as a team before they went and got the trophy for the game.
That gave me chills.
And Coach Fry said, like, if you scored a touchdown, you waited till the other 10 players were down there because you did not do that by yourself. You waited till everybody was there to celebrate that touchdown. And maybe a little long explanation, but the whole point of this is it takes everybody on this planet to have a successful planet. It's not an individual game, and yet we've so rewarded individualism. That's not really individualism. It's look at how I can act out further than somebody else can act out, and somebody says something nice about it, and all of a sudden, look at all the money and the 9 Rolls Royces I have and all that. It's like, that's stupid. Why? You know, and again, if that's what feeds you, that's what feeds you. But the point is, I was so blessed to play for a man like Hayden Fry, to learn that process, to come together as a team. That's what's fun about this show. We can kid each other, we can have fun, you know, we can do it, but it's a team working with the high intention of getting good messaging across to serve some people. And that's the exciting part. And I'm honored to be part of it.
The honor is ours, Scott. Absolutely.
And last but not least,
Kellen.
And she's got her notes. Does she have her notes?
I just had my pen tonight. I didn't write anything down. But pre-road rage Kellen, in my self-healing and learning about myself, I learned that I was very angry. And when I acknowledged and realized that I was angry, that's when I decided to have the shift. And that's when I decided, for example, to help pull over that lady, make sure that she's okay. And then that coincides with what Scott was talking about being remembered. I'm like, do I want to be remembered as road rage lady with 3 pugs and, you know, just crazy lady? Or do I want to be, you know, so what I started, like, by stopping and helping that lady or talking to that lady, somebody flips me off, I just keep driving and get out of their way. Because I figure it's kind of like that pay it forward thing. If I don't engage with their behavior, then possibly they'll slow down and not have that behavior next time. And if that person decides not to have the road rage when somebody else pisses them off, it's like this chain reaction of kind of calming the world down. So I figured that my part in this is not to engage, to just move, you know, be safe, get out of the way, whatever I need to do, and hope that the next time that person is pissed off at somebody, that they will do the same thing, or will give the courtesy to the person that's mad at them. That's what I think.
Nice.
I like that. Thank you, Road Warrior. Appreciate that.
There's a couple times I wanted to tap him, though.
I think Alan wants to say something.
Yes, Alan.
I just wanted to say thank you for inviting me to be part of the show. I wasn't 100% sure exactly what it would be like, but one of the things I can tell
is put a butt in there.
But
everyone here is trying in different ways to make the world a little bit better.
We're
doing
it. We're not
Walt
trying.
Disney. If we can dream it, we can do it.
Absolutely.
So thank you for having me.
I hope you come back.
Alan, the door's open for you anytime, my friend.
Amen.
And you know, I just wanted to add a couple things in that one, Alan, thanks for coming, and Kellen and everybody that comes all the time. But you know, the cool thing is that once upon a time I was an angry girl, and I've had some quiet little moments in my life, and I did meet this boy 6th grade summer, and that was Scott. And then I saw him 5 years later, before I graduated, coming a year early. And that was a time in our lives where we would see each other just every morning, a hug, a kiss. He'd go do his own thing. But I saw the goodness in Scott back then, and the kindness, and who he He really was. And I know he went through a lot of stuff in between the times we seen each other, but I'm just glad that his life turned around and that he is and always, I mean, when he was 12 years old, I saw the calmness before the storm, and I saw who he was, and the love and light that he is now is what he was at 12 years old before the storm started. So I'm just happy he's on the other side of it, and I'm happy to be here to see that he made it through all that. And I just hope and pray that he continues to be the light that he really is. So I'm very proud of him, very much so. And yet, you know, the funny thing is we were both in storms, but we never shared it. Everything was quiet. We just hold hands and hang out, and we just never shared anything. And that's all we just ever needed then. And that's sometimes all you need is just a friend to be there for you. So it was a blessing in disguise, and it's just something I'll cherish for the rest of my life. And I was blessed because I was very angry, upset girl, but I had blessings of people that came in my life to show me that I wasn't a bitter, ugly person that I thought I was, but that they understood me when I didn't understand myself. And because of that, I've always paid it forward to try to be there for other people, because you got to realize those ugly, ragey people, nobody understands them. If you don't take a moment to help those people when they're lost forever. And that's why we have a lot of suicide. Mm-hmm. That's why we have a lot of people that are lost. And I've recently tried to help somebody that was really lost, and I wasn't as successful as I could be, but I did what I could, and I wish them well. That's all I can say. But all I can say to you is that, Kellen, thank you for stopping for that lady. When we realize things for agreements, sometimes things aren't about us, it's about other people. And we are put here to help other people. Remember, at the end of the day, what you do, you got to live with yourself. So if you can live with treating somebody like shit, so be it. But remember, it's not about you, it's about them. So thanks for just listening to me rant really quick, but it really makes a difference in the world. And remember, whatever you put out there does come back. And so when you say, why am I going through all this stuff? Stop and think what you put out there, because what you do put out there does come back tenfold. So enough of that.
With that, it's time to wrap up the show. Thank you, everybody, for joining us right here on the Lynn Scott and Friends show. A reminder to everybody out there, we're here every Tuesday night at 7 o'clock. So please join in. If you have any topics you'd like to share with any of us, go ahead, reach out and let us know what you'd like us to talk about. But once again, a great show. Just a reminder to everybody, the position you are in your life is the position you put yourself in, and making changes will take you out of that. And the person that you were yesterday is not nearly as important as a person that you're going to be tomorrow. So make the changes, start being that person, and live your life the way you want to live it.
Love you guys.
God bless you guys.
Bye. It's Scott. Hold on a second.
Keeping me safe.